In this video, I am interviewing Herantis Pharma new CEO, Craig Cook. Craig, firstly, could you tell something about yourself and your background?
Yes, certainly. My background is as a medical doctor, and I left full-time clinical medicine after completing an MBA through London Business School. Thereafter, I held increasingly senior roles at pharmaceutical companies, including Eli Lilly, Johnson & Johnson, Novartis, and Serono. Then I decided to go down the entrepreneurial route and set up some successful ventures in healthcare technology, as well as healthcare per se. In 2013, I joined Mida, which is a biotech company dual listed on London AIM and NASDAQ US. And initially was head of R&D in that company, and then took over as CEO. I was from Mida and joined Herantis as of the 1st of July. So that brings us up to our current point.
You have quite a long career path. Why did you join Herantis Pharma?
It was a simple decision, really, to join Herantis. They have great science, great disease areas that they focused on, and great people. So from a science perspective, we have amazing science, and it's world-class research that has appeared in top-tier journals like Nature and Science and Immunology. And it allows us to have very differentiated assets because of the science. So that was one key reason. The second key reason is the disease areas that we're focusing on. These are very unmet or underserved disease areas, Parkinson's and lymphedema. Now, Parkinson's has maybe lacked innovation for the past 50 years. There hasn't been much progress in terms of the therapies, so it remains a massive unmet need. And for lymphedema, similarly, there are no medical or curative treatments for lymphedema. So again, a very unmet need, a virgin therapeutic area that holds great opportunity for the company. The third key factor was, or is, the fact that our therapies are really targeted at being disease modifying. So we don't only treat the symptoms, we're looking to treat the cause of the disease as well, and in that way stop or slow the progression or even reverse the disease process. There's a great team of people that are involved, very competent, very committed, highly skilled, and that's always important in assessing a company, and it was an important part of my decision. And then, of course, we've got encouraging data to date, which is important because that's what drives the company. So yes, I was delighted to have the opportunity to join Herantis.
So how do what are the strengths you bring with you to Herantis Pharma?
Well, I think the next chapter of the company is to work on and develop the clinical and corporate aspects of the company, specifically focusing on areas like clinical research, business development, and capital markets. And I think I have a good experience and a very reasonable track record that was gained in increasingly senior roles in pharmaceutical companies, the entrepreneurial ventures that I mentioned earlier, as well as running the public company that I mentioned dual listed on London AIM and NASDAQ. So from a clinical research perspective, I've worked in several therapeutic areas, including neurology and oncology, and starting with preclinical, first in human studies through to approval and launch. So from a clinical research perspective, a very broad experience. In terms of business development, I've led significant transactions, be it M&A, out-licensing, non-dilutive funding, and that's with significant pharmas and medtech companies or life science companies. And then from a capital markets perspective, I've raised capital for public as well as private companies, significant capital, and I've run a public company on both AIM and NASDAQ. So I think that covers off the basis quite well for Herantis moving forward.
Related to that, Herantis is preparing for the next stage of company development, and you as the new CEO. So what does this next stage mean for investors?
So as I mentioned earlier on, it's going to revolve around the clinical and corporate development of the company, and specifically the near-term goals for the company are to generate and to accelerate the programs, the key pillars of the company, the two main assets, through their inflection points, their near-term inflection points, as well as their medium-term inflection points, and achieve the milestones that create value for those assets. And then together with that, it's important to make sure that we make the right strategic decisions so that we can create value for the company as well as for our stakeholders, namely shareholders and patients.
I also noticed that now you have an actual investor relations team. Previously, it was the job of the CEO to do that as well. So what's your thoughts? Why do you want to invest more in investor relations right now?
It's not unusual to have an investor relations team in public companies to make sure that there's efficient communication between the company and the shareholders, to ensure that there's transparency with the shareholders, and to ensure that we have a good relationship with the shareholders. So I'm used to doing that in previous companies, and as Herantis enters the next stage and the next chapter of its development, I think that will be a useful addition to the company, and it'll be appreciated by the shareholders.
Herantis successfully raised more cash in this spring, around almost 7 million euros, and now you had around 9 million euros in the bank. How long you can operate with these resources?
Our current runway runs through to about H1 2021, and we're on track. We are going according to budget in that regard.
Has COVID-19 had any impact on your clinical studies or operations?
No, not at all. The studies are fully recruited, and the visits are also on schedule, on track. So right now, despite COVID-19, we've managed to keep the schedule as planned, and that's a testament to the Herantis team as well as to our collaborators. There may be some impact on some of the laboratory analyses that we are waiting for, but in terms of material impact to the programs, no, we don't have, we're not experiencing any material delays to the programs.
Could you give us an update first? Where are we at with the Lymfactin development, and when should we anticipate results on the phase 2 clinical study?
So Lymfactin Lymfactin is our treatment for breast cancer associated lymphedema, and it completed a phase 1 in 2019, and it was established as safe, which was the most important thing. That's the objective of that study. And in addition, we were encouraged to see some promising signals as it relates to the efficacy in these patients, including volume reduction of the arms, as well as improvements in quality of life. So we're now in a phase 2. The treatments have completed, and we're expecting the data to come through in Q1 of 2021.
Could you also give us an update on CDNF, when we should anticipate news about it?
Yes, so CDNF, we've just completed our first in-human study, and we will be holding a seminar, a webinar on the 15th of September to go through the data in detail. In summary, it was established as safe and tolerable, well tolerated in all patients, which was the primary objective of the study. And then in addition to that, we were very encouraged to see some potential indicators of efficacy in some of the patients, including in improvement in motor scores, so improvement in the motor symptoms of the patients, as well as improvements in quality of life. And that's from a indicator perspective. From a biological signal perspective, where we do imaging of the brain, again, we were encouraged to see in some patients some potential indicators of efficacy.
You just had a successful clinical study with Renishaw Neuro Solutions about drug delivery system. Could you comment on that?
Yeah, so the device that we use in the first in-human study for CDNF is the Renishaw system. So the surgical device that goes into the brain is the Renishaw system, and that administers CDNF deep into the brain, where the intention is to restore the dopaminergic neurons that have been lost as a result of the Parkinson's disease process.
And lastly, could you give us an update on xCNDF?
Yeah, so this is an exciting program. It's the key thing for CNS diseases is to get the drugs into the brain. And the brain is protected by a membrane, which keeps harmful substances away from the brain. And unfortunately, that includes medications. So it's very difficult to get medications across the brain. For CDNF, it's a large molecule, it's a large protein. So we use the surgical device that you mentioned earlier to get the therapy across the brain. For xCNDF, we've taken the smallest and most potent fragments of the CDNF protein that can cross the blood-brain barrier without the need for surgery and still have the desired effect on the dopaminergic neurons. So that would potentially provide an easier alternative route of administration for CDNF or xCNDF. And currently we're in lead optimization, and we hope to select the final lead compound in early 2021. So again, yes, very exciting program.
Thank you, Craig, for the interview. I'm looking forward to the next one. Thank you.
Yes, likewise. Thank you for your time, Vernerin. Nice talking to you.